Gonna be then going live on Instagram. Hello everyone. Just bear with me. I'm gonna launch Instagram and then there we go. And then we can have some fun and talk about belly fat today. So we have been talking quite a lot. If you follow us for a while, we did like a whole build up to things, to the belly fat conversation by talking about inflammation. So we did a lot of resources. We created a lot of resources about inflammation, and hopefully you like and appreciate the whole idea of inflammation and just how prevalent it is and how it impacts your belly fat. So and so today I want to talk about the belly fat as sort of like the one of the big reasons why we do develop belly fat is inflammation. So let me give you the schedule, the agenda for today. We're going to be talking about why you suddenly develop a belly fat, right? Which like we don't typically have it in our 20s, 30s, maybe early 40s, and then 45, 50 and above. You're like, where did this come from? Nothing else has changed, right? So we're going to talk about that, what changed. And then so we're going to talk about main causes, which is insulin resistance, inflammation, low estrogen, and microbiome changes. And then we're going to talk about the role of sugar and simple carbohydrates, how to improve the gut microbiome. And then we're going to be talking about raising your estrogen levels natural ways, whether you want to do it through herbs or whether you want to do it through bioidentical hormones. And then we're going to do an open Q&A at the end, but I'll do questions in the midst of the conversation as well. So one big question is, who here struggles with belly fat? And so, you know, I think this is like one of the big things that I think a lot of women are suddenly realizing is like, I've always been a slim person, or if I have weight, it will be in other parts of the body. By the way, let me know how is the sound, because I am sitting outside because it's a very hot day today. And for those of you who don't know, I'm spending the winter in summery Mexico on the beach. And so I am on the beach and it's beautiful here right now. Let me just show you, like, this is my view as I'm sitting and talking to you. I'm on the Caribbean side, but it's hot and there is a bit of wind. So I have a microphone that's supposed to cut out the wind and just focus on my voice. But if it's really loud and obnoxious, then let me know how is the sound. So yeah, so then I can go inside the camper van, but it's hot in there. So, but I'll do it. So just let me know how is the sound. Okay. So let's dive in. Many of you are saying here that yes, you do have issues with belly fat. So welcome to reality. You know, it's something that a lot of women will say, like, yeah, you know, I've always been a slim person. If I put on weight, it will be like either everywhere, it will be around my butt or my thighs, and suddenly that's all about the belly. So do you guys know like how? Do you know, have you seen those memes that we put on together, which is like showing you a woman who's shaped like a pear, and then a pear, right? And then another one, which is an apple shape, right? So the apple shape is all around, the fat is distributed around the belly. And then the pear shape is women who tends to put on weight around their thighs and buttocks, which is like someone like me, right? So the interesting thing is, where fat gets deposited can be an indication of what hormonal imbalances you're actually experiencing. So for those of us who are pairs, it tends to be estrogen dominant. So when you're estrogen dominant, you tend to have a big butt, big thighs. That's where cellulite accumulates. That's where fat accumulates. That's why I always say that exercise alone is not going to help you lose the weight if you don't address the hormonal imbalances behind it, right? Now, when it comes to apple shape women, and this could happen to women who are also in their 20s or 30s, like women with PCOS, for example, tend to be pear-shaped. That typically indicates issues with insulin, right? So insulin resistance, blood sugar balance, we tend to accumulate it in our visceral fat around the organs. And it's not a good type of fat because not only does it impair the organs, but it's also a kind of fat that becomes its own endocrine organ. So did you guys know that fat, visceral fat in your abdomen can actually becomes an organ, an endocrine organ? That means it produces its own hormones. And these hormones are going to be, one of them is going to be estrogen. So if you have estrogen dominance, they might be producing excessive estrogen, and that estrogen is not the type of estrogen you want, and then can be causing a lot of issues. By the way, we're going to be talking about estrogen dominance next week. So that's where, so that's what's happening. Now, let's talk about belly fat. Why suddenly after 45 or 50, you develop the belly fat, which you've never had before? And the biggest reason is so there's 4 reasons. Reason number 1 is that your insulin sensitivity reduces, and I'll explain that in just a second. You're experiencing a lot more inflammation, largely is because of the insulin sensitivity. You having your estrogen is dropping, and the microbiome starts changing, and that can impact where the fat is distributed or how the fat is distributed in the body. Now, let's talk about the whole insulin resistance and sensitivity to sugar component, because that's going to be part of your solution, right? Like if we want to talk about solutions, then we need to know what causes an issue in the first place. So the fascinating thing is as we age, our sensitivity to sugar increases as well, meaning that we don't clear the sugar from our bloodstream as well as we once could in our 20s, 30s, maybe early 40s. Now suddenly, it's like when you were a kid, when you're a teenager, or you in your 20s, you can have an ice cream every day. You know what's going to happen if you had an ice cream every day now, right? You're going to feel it in your weight really, really quickly. So the question is why? And the answer to this is that it's just the body does not break down the sugar as well as it once could. And part of the reason why that happens is as we age, let me just explain first how sugar is cleared so that you can appreciate what I'm saying. And when you eat something sweet, it gets converted into glucose. That glucose gets picked up from the bloodstream by insulin, which is a hormone that gets produced by the pancreas. And when the insulin is then introduced, typically insulin goes up as your glucose goes up, right? Because it's there to come and sweep up that glucose and then put it into cells so that you can maybe think faster, have more energy, whatnot, right? Excess of which will then be deposited towards in the liver. It can be deposited in the belly fat because that's the only safe place that the body can store fat without doing any damage. Imagine if like all the fat was going into the liver, you will be really, really sick. It was going towards the heart, you'll be really, really sick. So the body basically does the best it can, and the safest place will be belly fat. As we age, those cells that receive insulin together with the glucose are not as receptive as they once were. And that's the biggest difference that happens as we age. Part of it is caused by inflammation. So we talked a lot about inflammation in our previous, I think we spent 2 weeks talking about inflammation. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, look at our feed. We do so much of education on what causes inflammation. It's not single factorial. It can be multifactorial for most people. It could be stress, could be drugs, could be the things that you eat, could be alcohol, could be coffee. It could be so many different things, and everybody has a different trigger. One person can be highly inflamed by coffee, and another person can have coffee and feel just fine, right? So you need to figure out what is causing your inflammation. What are the inflammation markers that you can also test for it, but I think most women just kind of feel it in their body. So that is what is happening. And sugar in itself is highly inflammatory. So let me know if this is give me thumbs up if you understand what I'm talking about. And if you maybe have experienced it yourself, that the more sugar you consume, or the sugar that you consume now in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, however, whatever is your age, your body is not responding to it the same way as you were clearing it in your younger years. And that is profoundly important because this is what explains, I'm explaining all of this because the bottom line to all of this is basically saying you need to reduce the amount of sugar you're consuming and simple carbohydrates and do a little bit of a reset, or help the body also to support that clearing the metabolism of sugar and resynthesize those cells to receive that sugar one more again, right? So how do we do that? And you might have seen a very controversial post that I've written about getting off sugar for a couple of weeks, and that has caused a huge uproar, and everything from me being called names that I'm being stupid, I'm misleading, and all sorts of other names, to people understanding or saying like, okay, I get it. And that tells me, especially for people who are very upset with me, that tells me, first of all, if you can't, made me think that if you can't give up a substance for 2 weeks, then maybe you should evaluate your relationship with that substance. Sugar is highly addictive, okay? It works on the same receptors as cocaine does. And so, it's, it's heroin actually. And so, it is a source of pleasure for us. It is a source of kind of a pain relief as well. When we want to have something to soothe ourselves, we don't do a whole bunch of nuts, almond nuts, but we typically go for something like a mac and cheese, right? Or that's full of carbohydrates, or we want to do something sweet like ice cream. So all I'm saying is that I'm inviting you to give up sugar if and then the fruit, I think, was the second controversial part. It's all a matter of context, right? If you're just doing like a little tiny bit of berries for a couple of weeks, is not a big deal. But if a person is doing, 2 bananas in her smoothie and a glass of some kind of a fruit juice, right? And then is doing, a little dessert with dates in it, then suddenly you are kind of like doing sugar all over again, right? So what I'm inviting you to doing is just for a couple of weeks to give up sugar. If you really must do your berries, and you do your berries, that's totally fine. And you might see a profound difference in how your body responds. What I'm inviting you to do, and this is not a prerequisite, right? It's not like, hey, you guys, this is all optional, right? So if you don't like what I'm saying, please don't call me names. Don't tell me that I'm misled, that I'm not educated on this topic. All I'm doing is really inviting you to try something different, because you probably have done a lot of different things and try different things to lose weight, and it's not working. So there is no one thing that's gonna be like, helping you to lose your belly fat. I could be that kind of marketer who'll be sitting here and saying like, just take my probiotic called the flat belly, while changing nothing else, right? And be done with it. Instead, I'm kind of putting myself out there, and my team and I creating a vast amount of content, which takes up about 80% of our time and overheads every month, just to help you understand that what impacts belly fat, and just be truly dedicated to giving you a holistic solution rather than a point solution and bullshit that only one product can help you. It doesn't exist. If it existed, then you know about it by now, right? So if you don't want to get off sugar, that's fine. Just don't do it. And if you want to try it, then you might find some really profound difference in how you look and how you feel. Sugar is a highly addictive substance, and when I say giving up sugar, that also mean that you probably do really well if you gave up highly starchy things like potatoes and sweet potatoes. And if you want to do grains, continue doing grains. It's really up to you how deep you want to go. There's some women who would want to go and be like, you know what, for 2 weeks, I'm just going to go paleo. I'm just going to do heaps of vegetables and non-starchy vegetables and a lot of proteins, and let me see how I do. And there's other people who will be like, hell no, there's no way I can do that. And that's okay. So then just be conscientious in giving up alcohol, which converts to sugar. So alcohol, sugar in form of all desserts, and majority of fruit, unless you're doing a tiny bit of berries. Just do it for a couple of weeks and see what happens. The reason why, I got to appreciate how much sugar impacts us from my own experiment, I did a mold protocol, which I know many of you have been asking for the mold protocol, and I will put it together when I finish it. And I'm halfway through it right now. I stopped while I'm in Mexico. I'll do it when I get back to the States, and I'll finish it off. And the truth is that I had to get off sugar completely, even off all grains and all starchy vegetables. And it was pretty tough to do that for 3 months, but I did it. Because for me, mold, like I really wanted to get it out of my body. And it was amazing to see that in spite of not doing much else, the other thing that I upped was being super regular with my workouts. Everything else stayed the same supplements, same same lifestyle, right? And same kind of like I gave up completely alcohol as well. So that was the part of the no sugar initiative. And my weight just melted away so much, right? If you have seen it or haven't seen it, let me just show you. There was this one thing I wanted to, I shared this in our email. So there you go. So this was me in 2017 on the left side. This is during a photo shoot of our cookbook. I was very inflamed, very, very inflamed. You can see it in my arms. You can see it on my face. And I was very unhappy about getting a photo shoot in these kind of sleeveless clothes because I'm a natural athlete. And so for me, this is like, I'm big here. And I don't want you to think I'm having some kind of a body dysmorphia and be like, oh my God, because by a lot of people's standards, I'm actually slim, the one on it from 2017. For me, I'm not. Plus, I don't put on weight easily. That is the whole point. Even when I had Hashimoto's disease, low thyroid function, I never put on any weight, right? So suddenly for me to put on weight, like the way I did in 2017, this is when all the inflammation for me started, was something very unusual. And I also didn't feel very good. So you guys, this is not just about belly fat. With me, I think if you follow us for a while, you know that when I talk about weight loss and weight and belly fat, right? I'm talking about correcting the underlying causes. And as a result, you look good, but you also feel good. And that's the most important thing. For me, the weight is just an indication that something is off and needs to be balanced out. It's not about a beauty standard, right? Because I could have starved myself and finally, gotten to that point the way I look. And this is this year, 2024. This is me now. You can actually see my muscle definition. I am, I've got no tummy fat whatsoever. My legs are much slimmer now than what they were. I didn't even have a photo in 2017 because I really didn't like who I became and how much my weight had changed. I released all that inflammation. And one of the biggest needle movers for me was that giving up of sugar for 3 months. I did it for 3 months because that was my whole mold protocol. When you have mold, you are like seriously, committed, right? If you're just doing it for cosmetic reason, just to try it out, I say do it for 2 weeks. So one of the questions that we received was, hey, Magdalena, so why only 2 weeks and what happens afterwards, right? Like, do I go back to sugar then? Of course, I'm going to put on weight. So here's my thinking behind it and see whether that resonates with you. I said 2 weeks because I think 2 weeks is very doable for anyone to do it. During the 2 weeks, it gives your body the ability to kind of reset itself. Part of the, how I was talking about your cells being very sensitive to not being as sensitive to insulin anymore. Well, the whole idea is that when you get off sugar, right, get off alcohol, excuse me, then there is the body has like this incredible ability of like resetting its receptors. And so this is what we are hoping to see, whether the 2 weeks can help you get there. The second reason is that, it's up to you. After the 2 weeks, it's long enough for you to start feeling the difference and see how sugar impacts you. Some people will be like, oh my God, I had no idea. And how many of you here have given up sugar? What results did you get? Just share with us. In the comments in the previous post, we've heard everybody from saying, I had no changes whatsoever. Okay, now you know, then go back to eating sugar. To anyone say, and then we had a lot of women also saying, I could not believe how much sugar was impacting my mood, the quality of my sleep, how my weight, my overall cravings, and my whole dependence on sugar. I've broken up with sugar. It's almost like an addictive substance, right? So, in the sense of freedom from it. So there was just a lot of benefits that women were stating. And you wouldn't really know how sugar impacts you unless you give it up, right? So that's all I'm saying. And some of you retort and say like everything in moderation. And again, I will tell you the past week was kind of tough for me because I'm recovering from COVID. So last week I was like full on COVID and was feeling like really not well. And so seeing these comments and that nastiness that came with it was very hurtful, because I'm really not here to provoke you or make you feel bad about yourself. I'm just here to guide you and invite you to try something different. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine, but you don't have to call me names. So I took it pretty hard, and I'm still kind of upset about the fact that as a company, we've spent so much time producing, I think, high quality content. Tell me a supplement company that spends as much time on education and has as much education on their post as much as we do. I can't think of many supplement companies who do that. I could just be sitting here and pitching you supplements. I don't do that because I don't think supplements on their own can really make a move a needle in your health unless you address the diet part, you address your sleep, you address how you poop. Like there's so many different elements to your health. So anyway, I'm sorry if I'm sounding frustrated, but it's just been a tough week and I hope you understand where I'm coming from. Like I said before, if you don't want to give up sugar, then don't give it up. You know, all I'm saying is just try it out for 2 weeks. And for some people, so what happens after the 2 weeks, right? If you give it up and then you feel like, oh my God, I didn't realize I'm beginning to actually feel like myself again. I'm like, my pants are short, are loose now. My shirt is actually fitting. My bra doesn't feel so tight. I don't have that skin that just like popping out here, you know, like a muffin bra top here. For a lot of women, they're like, okay, I can see sugar is really my problem. I'm going to keep going because I feel that good. And I want to see what happens if I go off sugar for a month now, right? And then we can talk about moderation. You know, a lot of people don't realize how much sugar you're actually consuming. One of the things I remember doing when I was in private practice was asking women to do, you know, a detailed analysis of what they're eating and writing down exactly what they're eating and looking at the volume of sugar that was in everything from their protein powders to the juice that they are grabbing to the energy bar they're doing before running off to the gym, the little snack that they're doing, you know, during work days, right? And then the little treat they have at night. I mean, all of that combined, like even, I mean, in the US, it's even like soups have it and ketchups have it. Like, and it adds up. It can add up to easily to 80, 100, 200 grams a day, which is a lot of sugar for your body to process. So you should do that exercise at some point. I'm not into like counting calories and stuff like that, but I think doing like one-time exercise just to be honest with yourself and uncover how much sugar is hiding and everything. Like even iced coffees in the US are just so high in sugar. You would not believe it. All the lattes and frappes, it's like 80 grams of sugar easily, right? So anyway, so that's basically my my little advice here about sugar, and that's going to be one of the biggest needle movers for you. And alcohol, unfortunately, will be in that category as well. Ethanol converts into sugar in the body when it's ingested, and so if you truly want to get off sugar, then you gotta give up alcohol for a couple of weeks as well, and see what it does for you. Okay. Let's see if they have any questions before I move on to what do I think about agave. So agave is not great because agave is actually high in fructose, and fructose, it has to be metabolized by the liver. Agave actually was like a little bit of a marketing sham. It's just was, you know, created into a really great marketing, a product with a great marketing, lousy product with a marketing background. So with strong marketing. So no, agave, and if you're giving up sugar, you don't do agave. So you can substitute it to something either, you know, something like monk fruit or stevia, or honestly, just, you know, one of the things is kind of cool about giving up sugar is you're going to recalibrate your sensors in your mouth. And so when that happens, when you go back to eating something sweet, you'll be like, oh my God, I'm having this juice again that I never thought it was very sweet until I try it now. And it's like, it's so sweet. So in some ways you can do monk fruit or stevia as a substitute, but it's also a good idea for you to maybe to unlearn a little bit of the sweet profile and appreciate other tastes in your life as well. I'll give you an example of a smoothie. One of the smoothies I like to make is, instead of, you know, smoothies, most people know smoothies is something sweet. So instead, I want to invite you to making a smoothie that contains, for example, green vegetables in there. So like arugula, and then put in maybe some thyme and mint in it and squeeze a lemon in it, right? And you can put your protein powder in there, whatever it is. And that's going to be a super tasty smoothie without any sugar whatsoever is because of the lemon. It's gonna be kind of lemony and green, you know, and it tastes great too, right? So just try it out. So agave, it's a no. It's got high fructose. It impacts your liver. It is gonna feed your inflammation. Okay. Jen, I will pop over to Instagram and see what questions are there, and then we can go on to how to get rid of cellulite. So cellulite is going to be very much driven by the sugar that I was talking about. So you want to you can do the same approach. Stevia is fine. Bearberry extract and berberine. Yeah, those are. We're going to talk about gut health in just a second. So again, you know, for those of you who are asking about specific products, right, is that I always laugh about this, and I tell my team it's bad for our business to say that supplements alone don't work. But I also, you know, like I don't give a crap, and because I want to be, you know, when I think about it, when I die, I want to leave a legacy that I actually helped women feel better. And just by peddling products alone, this ain't gonna happen. That's why it's like I'm gonna mention a product that we are selling, you know, but it's not even gonna be that. That's what's gonna move the needle for you in the biggest way. The thing is gonna move the needle the most for you is getting on the elimination diet, eliminating foods that are highly inflammatory, and then giving up sugar for the couple of weeks. That's gonna be your biggest needle mover. Everything else is auxiliary. So somebody's asking about barberry extract or berberine, right? Again, like if you just look, here's the thing. If you are taking berberine, right, and while you are doing like 50, 80 grams of sugar every day, you're not sleeping, your estrogen is in a ditch, right? Is that fair to expect for that supplement to work? Not really, right? Your body is going to be still struggling. So, you know, I think in the context of adding that berberine to a wider protocol, and I'm sorry, but this is not a popular opinion because, you know, we like to think here of natural medicine as in like, oh, I don't want to do prescription drugs. But we've been so conditioned that what's the one drug for doing ABC, right? That now we're just replacing that drug, prescription drug, with a supplement. And I'm sorry to say, it's not going to work unless you do a little bit of work, and especially when it comes to things like belly fat. Thank you for your comments about the supportive comments. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I wasn't looking for sympathy. I just wanted to tell you how frustrating this sometimes can be to be a large platform owner. So somebody's saying feeling a lot sharper. That's another thing. A lot of people feel like their brain fog lifts when they get off sugar and processed carbs. So when I say simple carbs or processed carbs, it will include things like pasta, breads. So you might say like, well, bread doesn't have any sugar. Actually, in the US, a lot of breads do have added sugar, but you know, but it's you need to understand like what happens with those grains, and especially those processed flours. They get converted into sugar really quickly. For some of you who are wearing the constant glucose monitor, some people realize that, for example, surprisingly, rice gives them a real big spike. So, you know, you wouldn't know it until you actually wear a glucose monitor. But yeah, we're going to be talking about estrogen in just a second. Again, questions about supplements, right? So I think you know my position right now. Okay, so let's move on to, is there any other questions that we want to address, Jen, that are... yeah, so Heidi, this is about fruit. So like I said, maybe you're joining late. If it's just like a tiny bit of berries, that's fine. Otherwise, you're gonna cut out fruit for the couple of weeks. Fruit is fructose. Fructose has to be metabolized through the liver. You're adding inflammation to the liver, and hey, you guys, and this is like, there was another, you know, I felt like people were just throwing daggers at me that I dare to say that fruit is bad. I never said fruit is bad. All I said was I invite you to give up sugar, including fruit, for a couple of weeks, to reprogram your receptors in the mouth, to reprogram your reset, your descent, to reprogram your receptors in your body. So it's better able to take up insulin as you age. That's all I was saying, inviting you for a couple of weeks. So please don't start educating me that fruit is great, is full of fiber. I know that, okay? I eat fruit too. All I'm saying is that if you're getting off sugar, that is basically the idea, is that you eliminate fruit too. Because bananas are high in dried fruit are very high in sugar, dates are very high in sugar, and so on and so forth. Okay, all right, so all right, so let's keep talking. Can you remove the comment, Jen? And then let's move on to low estrogen, and then we're gonna be talking about the microbiome. So one of the reasons why we are putting on weight, especially around the belly fat, is it could be because of low estrogen. It's not a fully understood mechanism of what causes that. My personal theory is that it could be that, remember how I said at the beginning of the call that when we eat, when we put on weight, and belly fat and visceral fat becomes its own endocrine system, including producing estradiol, which is like the most potent estrogen. And so my belief that it could be potentially that as estrogen drops overall in the body tends to produce more fat in the abdomen. So it produces more estrogen since the ovaries are no longer producing that estrogen anymore. And that helps us to basically feel better because the body obviously needs estrogen to function correctly. So that could be one, I think, plausible reason. And one way of fixing this, if you don't want to do bioidentical hormones, you can consider doing a couple of things. Starting off with food, the first thing you could consider is doing flaxseed. A couple of tablespoons of flaxseed are freshly ground. Don't grind it. There's no need to grind it every day. You can pre-grind it for a week, put it in an airtight container, put it in the fridge. Flaxseed tends to go rancid pretty quickly, so you don't want that to happen. So keep it in the fridge in an airtight container. Putting a couple of tablespoons in a glass of water, sprinkling that on top of your salad, putting that in a smoothie is totally fine, or just having a glass of water. Flaxseed contains what's called phytoestrogens. They are very, very gentle estrogens. And for some women, that totally works and it fixes the issue. And other women, that's just not enough. So then you can go on to the next stage, and that is herbs. There are specific herbs that tend to be phytoestrogenic, things like black cohosh, red clovers, maca is estrogenic as well. And then Angelica sinensis, which is also known as donquai, right? Those are the 4 herbs you can try out with. And you can do that in the form of pills, supplements. You can also do them in the form of tinctures. We sell a wonderful product in our store called Wise Women's Balance. And part of it's formulated in a way that it raises the estrogen levels, but it also helps you metabolize that estrogen correctly. So it is a really nice formula that you can consider. Wise Women's Balance. And for those of you who are new here, our website is wellena.com. WELLENA. So like wellness and Magdalena put together. My brilliant team came up with that. So that's estrogen. If that still doesn't work for you, it didn't for me. And everyone is different, remember. So, seriously, we get emails from people saying that they took flaxseed and it just they became so estrogenic, right? So that's that. And so you need to kind of figure out what kind of a person you are and what your body responds to in terms of raising your estrogen levels, which way. So flaxseed, herbs, and the third one will be doing bioidentical hormones. And the most popular form is Biest. So it's estradiol and estriol put together. There are various creams out in the market. You can look into this. If you have a history of estrogenic cancers, please do work with a provider. You should not be doing technically estrogen. Okay. So, and if you have a history of a lot of estrogen dominance, I'll be really careful with doing estrogen and work with a provider to help you monitor how you're breaking those estrogens out. And you can only do that through urine testing. It's called Dutch, that shows you the metabolites that you're producing. Okay, so that's about estrogen. And then let's move on to the microbiome. So the other thing that we know about aging is that our microbiome diversity changes. And it's not just, what you need to understand is that it's not just about like taking a supplement that has a lot of units of this and that this strain and that strain. A really smart thing to do with probiotics is to rotate them with different strains. Finish off one brand and go on to another brand that has different combination. Because now what we are learning about the microbiome is the diversity of the bugs that matters more, rather than just having a lot of the same thing. And because there are so many different strains and so many of them we don't even understand, and they all have a relationship with each other, which is still not understood fully, it's one of the best things you can do, like I said, is to rotate things. One of the things that I remember when, I was working on my book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, which, by the way, we are relaunching that book next week. What we have done is, when I did research for it under the breast cancer chapter, because most breast cancers are estrogen receptor positive cancers, one of the things that I remember coming across this study that showed that women who had breast cancer had significantly lower diversity of the gut microbiome compared to women who never had breast cancer. I don't think this is just the only factor, and this is not a causation. It's just an observation about the diversity of the microbiome. This is not to say that poor microbiome on its own has caused the cancer. It's just an observation. It's just another data point for you. So it's not surprising. Our microbiome diversity decreases as we age. And one of the things, we don't sell probiotics in our store. There's a lot of other great brands out there in the market you can research and introduce and rely on. But one of the things, what I want to mention to you is that we have worked together with a patented strain called Bifidobacterium animalis, which has got some really nice research behind it that shows that people who take it, and there was a study done of over 300 subjects, that it changes their muscle to fat ratio. It decreases their appetite, but it's not an appetite suppressor. It's not like you're suddenly not hungry, right? Like some drugs do that, but it's more of like, oh, I don't need to eat as much. And it has shown their belly fat has reduced as well. So we sell that as a product. It's called the flat belly probiotic. And it's just a single strain. It's not your only probiotic you should be taking, but it's one that you can add on, because most of your probiotics would not have Bifidobacterium animalis in it. And if it does, it's probably going to be just a sprinkle. So we have the amount that's necessary that clinically shows to produce results. Okay, so that's about that. And let's see, Jen, what questions do we have? Is it the same if you use ground flax seeds? Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, except that I'm not a big fan of buying ready-made ground flaxseed, just because you don't know how long it's been sitting on the shelf, and so it's kind of like if it's gone rancid, and so I prefer to buy whole seed and then just use a regular spice grinder. I typically have like a coffee grinder when I don't drink coffee, but I have a coffee grinder for friends who come visit, and it sits on a coffee, and then a spice grinder I don't mix them because then all the spices smell like coffee. So you might want to invest in a grinder like that. It's very inexpensive and it's great for spices as well. My cortisol is high and I'm bloated bad. And he said, no, I think this is too broad. Let me just pick a couple of here. Jennifer saying, how do I know if the flaxseed is enough? What are the signs to know if it worked and needs to move on to herbs? Yeah, that's a good question. So you basically look at what are your symptoms of low estrogen, right? And so, by the way, you guys, we've got a really nice quiz that you can take. And the quiz can tell you which hormonal imbalances are you struggling with, and so and how to correct it. Jen, can we maybe post the link to our 8 hormonal imbalances in both Instagram and in the other channels, and so you guys can take a look at that. And so so you know whether, you know, the typical like forgetfulness, mood swings, right? Your period gets a lot shorter now, less bleeding. Incontinence starts happening much more often, right? So your typical menopausal symptoms. So when you're taking flaxseed and it basically starts alleviating those symptoms, then you know that this is working. That's the simple answer. So why don't we answer this? And Joey, maybe don't type everything in capital letters because it's like shouting. Why nutrition is saying body needs all carbs, fats, and protein. If restricting causes more issues, if insulin resistance or menopause, you need that much carb. Yeah, so if that was correct, then the being in ketosis would have not worked. If you look at, for example, the work of Dr. Anna Kebeka and the green keto diet, women have amazing results. Like, I'm not even talking to you guys about keto because keto is another level of commitment. Not everybody is able to do that, and I'm not sure how sustainable it is. But the body can either burn two types of fuel. It's either going to be carbohydrates and sugars, or you can switch. It's like diesel or gas, right? Or you can switch to ketosis and ketones and survive on very little carbohydrates. In fact, people who go into ketosis and do it the correct way, do it in a way that is mainly vegetables and plant-based fats. Not someone who's like sitting there and eating bacon all day long and Kraft cheese, right? Actually have amazing results. So this is like, I would say, real deep end of the spectrum, but that is not correct, that you cannot do. And remember, again, I'm just talking about taking, and I'm not talking about removing carbs here. Remember, you're still doing a lot of vegetables. You're doing, if you need to have, all the veggies are carbs, right? And if you can do a little bit of a sweet potato here and there instead of just jumping down on a full sweet potato, that's perfectly fine too. So it's just about really cutting back on starchy vegetables and added sugar. And so that is, and if it doesn't sit well with you, then I'll say don't do it. Okay, how do we know? Okay, so this one is we already done that. So one more, does a keto harm, can a keto harm that gallbladder? If you, no, and especially if it's a high quality fats, it would not. Like Dr. Anna Kebeka's, for example, keto green, which I did a couple of times, is very much olive oil based. And remember that gallbladder does not get affected by fats. It gets affected by inflammation, such as and sugar. Dairy, for example, dairy sensitivity is a common cause for gallbladder issues in a lot of people. So that's something I think interesting to know. And no, so it doesn't harm. All right, let me just go over to Instagram and see what questions we're getting there. Do you ever recommend soy products, milk thistle, fenugreek to increase estrogen? So that's a great question. Soy is highly controversial, so I tend to stay away from it. But some of the, if you can get your hands on a organic soy product, that could be actually really super, super beneficial to raise estrogens. Yes, it's just most soy products are GMO based. So and also things like, please don't go and drink soy milk or do, like processed tofus and stuff, because that food is highly, highly processed. I'm talking about a soy supplement. And from an organic soy, that could work. Milk thistle, that could be great too. Fenugreek can be great too. I didn't want to give a whole menu of things, but they are, and I love fenugreek also for balancing your blood sugar levels, by the way. Milk thistle is amazing for the liver too. So yeah, feel free to add those in as well. I already talked about berberine. Let's see, what else do we have? Do you have a recommendation for glucose monitor? I don't. There's only a couple of brands in the market, and both of them you have to sign up for a membership with them. And unfortunately, it's a controlled substance, and so what it means that you need to be managed to use it. It's not like you can just purchase it yourself and kind of do it. So it's those memberships are very expensive, and if you can find a doctor who will prescribe that for you, then that's a way to do. Do you moderate your fat intake? That's a great question. So I do, because I am sensitive to fats, and so especially saturated fats, I don't do well with it at all. And it's all very by individual, right? I've got some genetic testing done, and I do extremely well with plant-based fats, as well as things like not even all of them, because like coconut, I just cannot do coconut. I will tell you a story in a second, but like fish-based oils, as well as unsaturated fats that are plant-based, like olive oil, avocado oil, all of that is fantastic. I want to give you a quick example of that. I went to Costa Rica, this was several years ago, and I spent 2 weeks at this farm. I lost a lot of weight, and then towards the end of the stay, there was this woman who started making this coconut yogurt, right? And so she'll bring a coconut from the tree, scoop up the pulp, blend it up with the water, and then introduce the kefir. I think it was kefir or yogurt. It's like kefir or yogurt, probiotics in it. And the following day, or even like not even that, because that thing was going so fast, like within a few hours, you have this amazing kefir or yogurt, right? I was just like, wow, that thing was so incredibly delicious. And so I started eating that, and I swear to God, like I put on, like literally everything just went into my butt. I felt like I had a jiggly butt, which I typically don't have, because that's just not how my body operates. And like I said, remember, I don't put on weight very easily, but boy, that fat just really affected me. So since then, I know that saturated fats are just not for me. When I was experimenting with ketosis, I learned it the hard way that doing, for example, keto green with Dr. Etta, and doing a lot of avocados and a lot of olives and olive oil and stuff like that were just perfectly fine to get me into ketosis and feel good. But the minute I started doing a lot of like fats from animal protein, and just as part of steaks or, and butter and stuff like that, that was, it just inflamed me like crazy, and I had to stop. So really, we all very different from each other. So you need to figure out where you are. Toxic Free Chick is saying you can't out supplement a bad diet. That's I think just sums it up. Thank you. What about caffeine? You can do caffeine. I mean, let's just focus on one thing at a time right here. So what genetic testing did you do? Yeah, so I did the just 23andMe, but as the interpretation of the test, I happen to have friends who do these sort of things. So I'm not the best person to ask. You need to poke around in other places of of how to get this interpreted. Is there a connection between having low sex hormones and having constipation? Any recommendations for constipation? So I should do another call just on constipation, but just like super quickly. I wouldn't say between low sex hormones. Typically, the hormone that affects constipation a lot is your low thyroid function. Thyroid can impact motility, right? So how your body moves the food along and poops out. And it's a great question from the context of hormones for everyone here who's struggling with constipation, because you need to evacuate things correctly to enjoy a good hormonal balance. We poop out our used up hormones, if you will. And so if you don't poop them out, they get recirculated into body and just creating a lot of inflammation and other havoc. So, the advice of drink more water and do more fiber is a little simplistic. And so if it hasn't worked for you, then I'm not even going to go there. In fact, people who are constipated, a lot of times, the more fiber they eat, the more constipated they are getting. So that's another story. But couple of things we can actually, I don't know what your name is, but you can go to our website, hormonesbalance.com. We have an educational site that actually has got a really good article about constipation. Food sensitivities is an interesting one. Gluten and dairy can be a huge causes behind constipation. poor microbiome is another one. So just introducing a diversity of probiotics can make a big difference. There's someone I just started following recently on Instagram, and what she talks about is she focuses on specifically constipation in women. I don't remember her handle, I'm sorry, but just poke around and see what you can find on Instagram. One of the things that she talks about is diversity of food. So like not having like, say, a bowl of rice and one vegetable and one protein, but rather having a little bit of many things. So you basically cook that, you keep it in the fridge, and then you pick a few different things in different colors and textures. And so that was her thing. And she seemed to have a big following that has worked for a lot of people. So yeah, and then magnesium deficiency is another common one. So I would do, if I were you, magnesium citrate at night, like starting off with 300 milligrams. And if it doesn't work, then just go up to at least get this pushed through. And sometimes I have found that when you do a higher dose of magnesium and you kind of get the system going again, then you can back out from the magnesium, and then the body will do its own thing. So, by the way, we're releasing a new magnesium citrate plus, we call it, with Triphala. And so we'll talk about constipation when it's coming up. Can lemon with water be empty stomach help with microbiome? No, not really. The microbiome is going to help with other things like helping you increase your stomach acid and alkalize the bodies. That's not a bad thing to do at all. What helps the microbiome though is intermittent fasting. There's a lot of research that shows if you fast anything between 15 to 18 hours, the microbiome has a great ability to reset itself. So I personally try to fast like 3-4 times a week. For that long, it means, for me, it would mean having really early dinner, like at 5 o'clock, and then I don't eat until 11. I cannot go beyond 11 because then I start getting hypoglycemic. So this is the reason why I do early dinner, and then, instead of doing like dinner at 8 o'clock and then not eating until 2-3 p.m., I can't do that. So figure out what works for you. All right, I'm gonna do one more question that is related to. I want to stay on topic, you guys. Let's go over to Instagram. To Facebook. Do we have any good questions, Jen, that are related to belly fat or sugar balance? Do you recommend any adaptogens, you mean, like maca root? Yeah, I mean, it's a nice addition, to things. Dr. Anna Kabeka has a nice product called Mighty Maca that has maca root in it, and it's got a lot of other things added to it as well. So yeah, it's a nice add-on for sure. Okay, awesome. Hey, you guys, I hope this is helpful and has inspired you to make some changes. So just to recap today's call, the main causes behind your belly fat is going to be insulin resistance, which you may not have been even diagnosed with it, but is basically your body's inability to deal with sugar as well as it would. And that's why I'm recommending to get off sugar for a couple of weeks, including alcohol. Reducing inflammation, a lot of resources on that, how to do that. I have found that reducing inflammation through diet change, going in on an anti-inflammatory diet that reduces or takes out gluten and dairy and eggs and soy for a couple of weeks can be really helpful. Correcting your low estrogen levels through food, herbs, or bioidentical hormones if you need to, and then correcting your microbiome, including, we have that in our store, the probiotic called Flat Belly. It's a great add-on to your existing protocol. And again, Flat Belly probiotic is going to work great with those other changes that I'm talking about. I think, even though the research that, we have access to this based on the strain, like these folks did not make any changes at all, and they saw the results. So, but I think you're going to get a lot more results when you combine it with other things. All right, well, I hope this is helpful. My energy is weaning down. I feel like I'm still haven't recovered from COVID, and so I'm still on a mend. So my energy is weaning down. So I'm gonna take a break for the afternoon. And I hope this was helpful. That has inspired you or given you some new direction to try new things. And I shall see you here in the space soon. Thanks, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of the afternoon.